Terrell Thomas, These Urban Times. I'm sitting down with a gentleman right here who I can say it's been dope checking out your music. I think you got something really dope going. Some of us have heard just Single Cream. Some of us have had the pleasure of hearing your project, Darling. So I want to talk to you about both of those things, find out your history in music and how we actually got to this point with all the great things you have going on. Dixon, how you feel today?
Man, I feel great, man. It's finally a little sun in Atlanta, so I can get outside and kind of enjoy that. Right before this interview, I was just out walking in the yard, taking phone calls and enjoying, the southern life.
I'm not mad
So,
at that.
yes, sir.
It's definitely been a rainy week, you can almost say. It's been raining damn near the entire
Man.
week. So it is good. Maybe God knew we were going to do this interview today. So he said, let
Yeah,
those brothers some sunlight, get their
I sure appreciate it.
So
Man,
talk to me.
it was starting to get sad out here.
No, facts. It was damn sure. Talk to me and let me know, when did your journey into music take place? You're doing things in the R&B sector around, but I also know that you have a gospel history in your background as well. When did you fall in love with music? When did you begin to let your talents in music be seen?
I mean, I know just based off my mom telling me stories that like music has been in my life, since a baby. My mom was put on bed rest when I was about to be born. And during that time, she just played a lot of music for me. So, being a musician was not a shock to her. My mom was also a musician. My father was also a musician. So it wasn't a shock. I think it started to really manifest itself when I was about 1 or 2. I used to like crawl and pick up pots and pans and beat on the pots and pans, and that turned into playing drums, and it just kind of spiraled from there. I started playing drums before I even could sing or talk that well. So I've been pretty musical my whole life. And it's a testament to my parents just letting me explore and, discover the things that I was good at, practice the things that I wasn't good at, and keep it moving from there.
I know that you grew up in the church as well.
Yeah.
That you got a lot of your experience in the church setting. What church here in the Atlanta area where were you a member of, and did you begin your journey in the music in?
I grew up in a church called New Unity Missionary Baptist Church, which is off of exit 9 on 285, like right by Cascade Skating Rink.
Okay.
Up on a hill. My dad was a deacon at first there and got ordained to be a pastor, and he was an associate pastor there for a while. And then when my parents split up, we went to another church that's a big church in Atlanta called Mount Nebo,
Okay.
which is off Moreland Avenue across from the drive-in movie theater. And when I became like an adult, I took on a role as a youth worship leader at New Birth, which is the first big mega church that I ever, worked at. And then I moved to Dallas and started working at the Potter's House with Bishop Jakes. So I've been a church kid, pretty much my whole life. Those are some of the churches that I've been members of, but I've been to a lot of churches in Atlanta to sing and perform and, to watch my father preach. So yeah, I grew up like in all the churches pretty much in Atlanta. All the ones that you know about, I probably stepped foot in there and have sang there or, been a part of something there. So
Okay, that's very dope to know. I also
yeah.
know that you a part of your musical journey took place on The Voice. You were on The Voice. I know you formed a relationship with Pharrell. Talk to me first though about The Voice, about the competition, and how you feel like that helped shape everything you have going on in your journey.
Man, I really feel like The Voice just gave me a lot of confidence. It's a lot of eyes on you at once, not just in the arena, but just knowing that there's millions of people watching you perform live is definitely a it'll humble you if you let it, and it made me realize that I need to, make sure I was always spot on with my performances, taking my cues from the directorial team there and really taking a chance to like let that village nurture me. I feel like the voice can go a couple ways for people. It can be one of those things where you either think you're too big for the show, or you expand by being on the show and letting those people like guide you and coach you. So Pharrell was my coach, but I had a vocal coach on the show as well, and I just kind of let her pour into me, and like, you know, I soaked up everything I could. I spent a lot of time in the costume department just getting tips and tricks from them, from what would look good on camera and on screen. I talked a lot with the directors and the showrunners. Like, I was really just a sponge there, and I was so happy to be in that environment that every day coming to work just felt like a joy. And the bonus is you get to gain a lot of fans, and you get to get a lot of publicity, and, you know, famous people follow you because you're a good singer. And, you know, so those are all the benefits of it. But man, every single aspect of that show just taught me so much, and taught me the importance of having a solid core team around you. And I can honestly say everybody on The Voice, man, they're the nicest people. They're the most kind people. They really show up to work because they love it, and it shows with the quality level of content that they produce.
As you mentioned, you spent a lot of your time in Atlanta. You're currently in Atlanta, although you do you live in Dallas as well.
I live in Chicago right now, but yeah.
Oh man, you're traveling all over where places where there are great pockets of music.
Yeah.
Talk to me about your Atlanta influence and how so many great creators and what you hear here have influenced or helped your sound.
I mean, Atlanta has no shortage of great musicians. I mean, from the hip hop side to the R&B side to even country music, because Nashville is right up the road. There's a lot of great singers, performers, musicians here in Atlanta, and I was lucky to grow up in Atlanta during a time where, you know, people were not afraid to discover who they wanted to be. So I grew up as Janelle Monáe was popping. I also grew up at a time where like D4L and Crime Mob and all of those people were just experimenting with sounds. Soulja Boy was experimenting with sounds and paths to get to the next level. But then you fast forward to now, you have Coach K, you know, with the myriad of artists that he backs and supports. Back in the day, you had LaFace Records and Arista here. You have So Def. You know, shout out to Jermaine Dupri. I spent a lot of time at So Def. My cousin was an artist at So Def for a while.
Okay.
So I grew up in a community that was just willing to share and pour into me. And I feel like Atlanta is one of those places. It's definitely the city that if you get the city, you can conquer the world. And so I appreciate that about my city. I appreciate the fact that, you know, even when there's people that aren't from Atlanta originally, when they move here and they join the community, I feel like the city embraces them. And that's something to be said. You know, that's the Southern hospitality right there. You know, if your stuff is good and people appreciate it, Atlanta will get behind it. And that's something that I really appreciate about the city. That's why I'm here right now. I'm here recording my next project, and just kind of soaking up the city. And I didn't get to move around for like a week because it was rainy. And, you know, nobody in Atlanta travels when there's rain. Like, we will stay at home. We will cancel weddings, funerals, events. So I'm grateful to be here right now to soak up the city and kind of get some inspiration for my next project. Go visit some of these old churches that I used to frequent, you know, talk to people that I grew up with, and get stories, and then take those stories and make a new body of work.
You just schooled me to some things and whatnot, saying you had a cousin who was on So Def. Who was that cousin? And what did you learn in your time just even being around Jermaine Dupri?
Yeah, so I have two cousins that were on So Def. One I know, one is my first cousin, and we're very close. He was the one who brought me around So Def quite a bit. His name is Cato, and he graduated from North Atlanta. Jermaine discovered him when he was still in high school, and he's still really close with Jermaine. Yeah, being around Jermaine, I can say this. Every time I've been around Jermaine, he's been super gracious. I can't say that, you know, I was just like a fly on the wall in his particular sessions. My cousin had his own room at So Def where he recorded his stuff. So, but being around Jermaine, I mean, he's a legend. So, I mean, anything that I'm one of those people that you got to understand when you got to understand who you are in the room, right? So I knew that I was a kid trying to soak up all the information, so I stayed quiet. If somebody needed me to get something or do something, I was just the kid that did it, and I soaked up as much information as possible, and I feel like it's helped me in the long run in my career, just being around such great business minds like Jermaine, Brian Michael Cox. All these people are heroes of mine. So the fact that my cousin was working with the label, I got to be around them. And I'm always shouting my cousin out for putting me in that position because I feel like I learned so much then. My other cousin who was signed to So Def is way more famous. But I think we're only second cousins, and it's on my father's side. So one cousin's on my mom's side, the other cousin's on my father's side, and that's Bow Wow. Okay. And we're cousins. I'll never forget. I broke I didn't break my knee. I tore a ligament in my knee in high school playing basketball, and we had a family reunion in Ohio. Oh, and my father was like, I was in a wheelchair. So my father was like, are you going to roll down and meet your cousin? And apparently he pulled up to one of the family reunions in Ohio, and I missed it because I was hurt and on pain medication. But I haven't met him in person yet, but it'd be kind of cool because it's been the story in my family that like we should meet each other and talk to each other. And yeah, I've seen him places, but never really had the courage to walk up to him and be like, yo, we cousins, but actually we second cousins. So that's weird. You really don't know me. But yeah, I had two cousins that were signed to So Def, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, that is pretty cool. And God doesn't make mistakes. So I can see in your journey, y'all two possibly getting on the record together, doing some family.
Maybe.
So that'll be dope. I want to talk about the now. Get into what you have going on now. It's dope to hear you just say that you're already getting your mind ready and working on a new project. But your project, Darling, your first project under RocNation. Talk to me about that project and talk to me about how the relationship formed with RocNation.
Well, I'll start where it began. I had just finished Chance's album, The Big Day. I was one of the writers and one of the producers on there. And I made it back to New York where I was living temporarily. And I saw one of the executives from RocNation who we had talked on Instagram, and, I had sent him music back and forth, but never really got any response at the time. I was touring with one of their artists, Vic, and I would see him a lot. And it was always love, but I also am one of those people that I literally live by the saying, know who you are in the room. So like if we're there for Vic, I'm obviously not trying to pitch myself during my friend's tour run. I have respect, for my friend. And so that's what I would do. I would just say, what's up? And be cool. But I had this one fateful day in Soho in New York where I was by myself. Vic wasn't around. I was just kind of chilling. My girl was at work, and I was just in Soho working, and saw Law and walked up to him and was like, hey, I just dropped a project where I'm a writer and a producer on with Chance, and I got 10 records on there. And at first it had kind of gone over Law's head. And he was like, wait, you got 10 records on there? He was like, yo, send me some stuff and, text me and I'm gonna hit you. I didn't expect that. I didn't expect that. So I just, when he called me, he was like, you got to come to the office. And I was like, wait, what are you trying to say? He's like, yo, we got to have a real conversation. So I went to the office. First thing I did was prepare my laptop with all my best songs, because you never know who you're gonna meet in these situations. So you pull out all the heat. And when I played them the stuff, executives were walking in and out of the room. Law was like, play them this one. And finally, the two presidents of the label, Shari and Omar, walked in and was like, "What do we got to do?" And that's how it happened. So, and that was a year before we even announced anything. So I was signed to RocNation for like a year, just floating out in the air. I had those songs that I played them that they loved, but the pandemic happened. So we thought we were going to release a certain project, and I had all this free time now to make music. And that's how Darling kind of came about. I made a lot of it at my house, which I'm grateful it doesn't sound like that, but I made a lot of it at my house. And what I love about Darling is that I feel like I had a lot of time to process what I wanted to say. And I always knew that if I signed a record deal, a lot of people know me for like the stuff that I do that sounds, I don't know, kind of like some trap R&B stuff. A lot of people know me for that. A lot of people know me for like what I do as a vocal producer, like with background vocals and things like that. But I wanted people to know me as a singer first. So I started to write songs that I felt good just singing. And so a lot of my time working on the project was just me walking around the house, singing the choruses over and over again to make sure that it's something that was singable. And a lot of the feedback that we've been getting off the album is that, man, I just love these songs. I'd be in my car, turning them up, singing loudly. And that's exactly what I was doing at home. So it's cool to get the same reaction. Like I was walking around my house, full volume, blaring, in the middle of a pandemic, and never got any calls from my neighbors. But like the fact that people are doing the same thing with these records makes me know that I wrote something, I produced something that is long lasting, and that's important to me. That was the most important thing for me dropping a project on RocNation. That the first one, people know me as the singer and the writer and the producer that I am, and then we can move into different spaces. Like I feel like I can do a lot of things with my voice. I feel like I can do a lot of things with production. Like I can go anywhere. I just heard the other day one of the executives was like, yeah, you can also make rock and roll songs. I just made this record for a film, and it was like, we didn't know you could make rock and roll songs. I was like, man, I can do anything, and I think that's a big reason why they signed me too, is they know we can go a lot of different places, and I'm excited for people to hear the growth in the music too.
Was it difficult creating music during the pandemic? Or what did you run into any hiccups or anything that you found difficulty in during that process?
When we first got locked down, okay, everybody was scared to move around. So I realized, I was like, oh man, I got this home studio, but I realized I was missing some gear. I was like, if I'm gonna make an album, I need certain gear that I would have at the studio that I didn't have at home. The only problem with that was people were scared to move around. Stores were closed, things of that nature. And finally, like after 3 or 4 weeks of being nervous, I mustered up the courage to go to Guitar Center to buy some cables that I desperately needed in order to record. And
Were
I
you
feel
in
like
Dallas or Chicago at the time?
I was in Chicago.
Okay.
Once I bought those cables, it was just like the world opened up for me. Like once I bought, because I was like, damn, how am I gonna record the way I want to record? And I went to Guitar Center. I had on like 3 masks. I had on like 2 hoodies. Like I was like fully covered. I might have had on gloves at that time too. I stayed in that store all of 15 minutes. I was like, listen, I gotta move quick. If you ever shop at Guitar Center, you probably know it's usually not a quick process.
Oh yeah, facts. Not at all.
Yeah.
Not at all.
So I was like, I got 15 minutes. Y'all either want this money or I'm dipping, because I can't be in here longer. People out here dying from the coronavirus. And they got me everything. Shout out to Guitar Center. They got me everything I needed. And I ran back home, and it was go time from then on. So it wasn't difficult, man. I feel like a lot of my creative friends got into this funk, feeling like because we couldn't see each other that we couldn't make things. And a big proponent of calling people, FaceTiming people, playing them stuff, getting them excited, doing Zoom sessions. Like I did whatever I could to keep my community buzzing, so that we could keep working. And I feel like we did a good job, man. Like all the producers that worked on this project, we pretty much did everything virtually outside of me and my engineer. And you know, I thought it was going to be a lonely process, but man, I was on FaceTime, Zooms every day, even with the label, getting it done. I thought it was going to be difficult to do, but it really wasn't that difficult for me. I kind of prefer this digital thing, but that's my personal thing. I know people love being together, but I'm an only child, so I like to be able to dip when I can. So yeah, it wasn't that difficult for me, man. It was actually really fun to discover a new way to make music.
Terrell Thomas, These Urban Times, sitting down with singer, songwriter, man of many talents, Dixson. I'm not going to take up too much more of your time. Once again, I appreciate you sitting down and talking with us. But give our audience a little more insight and let us know about the relationship you have with Chance the Rapper. As you mentioned, you helped him on a lot of the records on a big day. So talk to me about that, how that all came about.
Man, I think it was really the power of a couple things, like manifestation and timing. I went to LA to meet Pharrell for a session,
Okay.
and he introduced me to Vic, who he was in a session with working for his project that was about to come out.
Okay.
And Pharrell told me that me and Vic needed to know each other. He felt like it would be a good synergy between us. And we exchanged numbers. And I'm one of those people, I never really bother people unless I need something. So when Vic dropped his album, I hit him up and I was like, gee, do you need somebody to sing all these hooks on your album? Because he was singing on the album for the first time that I had ever heard in his music. I was already a big Vic Mensa fan, but I hadn't really heard him sing the way he was doing it. So I was like, yo, if you need supporting vocals, just let me know. I'm down. I ain't doing nothing. I can go on the road tomorrow if you need to. And I never really heard back from him. So I, through one of his sound engineers at the time, got an invite from the sound engineer. Was like, yo, actually, we about to start rehearsals really soon. Just pull up to LA. Don't worry about it. So I pulled up to Vic's rehearsal without him even knowing I was coming.
Okay.
And I just crossed my fingers. I prayed before I went into the session. I was like, listen, if it's for me, it'll be for me. And I auditioned the same day for the tour, and I was on the road with Vic. And so through that, I met a lot of Vic's friends, Chance, Peter Cottontail, Nico Segal, Nate Fox, like all of these guys who kind of work in that Chance collective and that Vic collective, I met and started spending a lot of time in Chicago. And by sheer nature of being in the rooms at the right time, got a call to do one song for Chance, do background vocals. And that one song just turned into another song, into another song. Eventually they were flying me to Chicago to work on the album. I actually spent like 3 months in Chicago in a hotel just working on Chance's album, going to the studio, sleeping in a foreign city to me. And then I finally packed up and moved to Chicago because the work was just becoming so much for me to travel and work. I didn't want to put extra expenses on my friend because now me and Chance are cool. I was like, listen, man, I'm just gonna move here. Just, you know, if there's work to be done, just always call me, you know, and I'll be here. I'll be available. And I think that's something that I just kind of live by. You know, I like to make myself available as much as I can. Things are a little harder now because I'm signed and, you know, I have my own thing to do. But whenever my friends need me, I just try to make myself available. I'm just very lucky that these friends are very powerful, you know? So I try not to make a big deal of it, but Chance is one of the kindest people in the world. He really came into my life at a time where I needed him, not just for the work, but to just be inspired by the way he kind of conducts business and the way he makes his records. It's a family affair, and I needed to know that collaboration was possible at that time of my life. When I met Chance, I was losing my father to a battle with cancer, and just having that friend group around at that time really kept me sane. So yeah, shout out to them, shout out to Chance, shout out to Peter, Vic, all of my guys in Chicago. They I don't even think they really understand how much of a blessing they were to me at that time. Not just because they were helping me pay my bills, you know, with the work, but like plenty of times I'll just get a text message from a homie saying, bro, we're in the studio right now praying for you. You know what I'm saying? Like, you don't get that a lot in this industry. It's really, for a lot of people, it's about the work, but what I love about Chance is that it's about the family. And that's, for me, like, I whenever Chance calls, I'm gonna answer the phone. Because of that right there, he's a real one. So, and everybody at that camp is a real one, from the Bennett's, his parents, to his management team, all the way down to security. Like, everybody on that team is super solid. So I have nothing but great things to say about my friends.
Definitely sorry to hear about your father.
Yeah, man.
I do think the one thing, the blessing, as you just said, that is dope. God works in mysterious ways. So although you had something going on difficult in your personal life, being able to make those connections in the music realm, that was dope at that time in that period.
And what's crazy is I remember talking to my dad and telling him what was going on with Chance. My dad was older, but he was familiar with Chance because Chance worked with Kirk, and he had seen them together on TV, and he was like, "You know Kirk, right?" I was like, "Yeah, I know Kirk." He's like, "That's so cool that Kirk is working with, you know, people that make rap music," because my dad was a pastor, so he only knows Kirk as a gospel artist. He doesn't know that Kirk, you know, worked with Ye and all of that. But he told me something that was really important. I was traveling back and forth from Chicago to Atlanta to take care of my father during those final stages, and he knew that Chance and them were flying me back and forth. He knew my girlfriend was working for the airline, so my girl was putting me on standby. It was just a combination of things happening to get me back and forth. And he was like, "Man, don't worry about me. It's like, this is a huge opportunity for you." And he was like, "Man, I've lived my life." My dad was I think my dad had turned 80. He had his 80th birthday about a month before he passed. And he said, "Man, I've lived 80 years. Like, you got your whole life ahead of you. You know, I'll call you if it's a dire emergency." Because, bro, I was coming, like, I would work for 2 or 3 days in Chicago and get so worried about my dad and have so much anxiety about it that I would just dip and be gone for like 2 days and fly back. And I was doing this for months, like, and doing it without people really knowing that I was doing it. Like, I would come to Atlanta, never tell anybody. I would just come check on my dad, head straight back to the airport, go back to work, because I didn't want to miss anything. It was my first opportunity to work on a big artist album, and I didn't want to miss anything. And even Chance was like, "Man, if you got to take time to be with your father, like, do that." While my father is telling me, "Go, you know, become who you need to become." My father never got to witness me signing my deal. He never got to be a part of that, which was for a while, it felt like a huge loss for me. Uh, but I always felt that he was kind of watching over me, like helping. We always have this, me and my family talk about the fact, you know, my dad being a pastor, he's getting on guys' nerves about me every day. He's like,
I like that. I respect
"Hey, you gotta, hey, take care of him," you know, like. And that was something that my father told a lot of the really close relatives and friends during his last days, was, "Take care of my son." So I feel like my dad's in heaven getting on guys' last nerves about me, like, because just the sheer amount of things that have happened for me during that time period, when we found out that he had cancer and when he transitioned, man, it's only God that could do that. And so I'm very lucky to have an angel in him who on earth cared so much about me, but I feel like in heaven he's getting on everybody's nerves because now he can kind of rest and not be in pain. So now he's full steam, you know, trying to you know, get me to where we always talked about I would be. So yeah, I'm really blessed in that regard.
Man, I'm deeply enjoying sitting down and chatting with you and learning more about you. But I'm gonna ask you two more things so that you can
Right.
get out and enjoy the sunlight. I know we ain't got much more time to enjoy the
Yeah,
sunlight
dog. I'm
today.
about to go. I'm barefoot and I'm in the grass. Like that's how I've been spending most of the day today. So
I want to know about Cream. I want to know about how Cream all came about. I know it's kind of paying homage to Wu-Tang to an extent.
yeah,
I love the record. I think it's a very dope record. But how did that process all come about, and what was the creative stages like?
man, I got a track from my homies in DC, Anakin and Vader, and there was some elements in the track that I immediately knew I wanted to take. So when I work with people as a producer, kind of the written understanding is that if you send me a beat or a track, I'm probably gonna reproduce it so that it fits what I'm trying to convey or say. Or if it's hot, I might just sing or write something over it. But with me and Anakin Vader, we work together on not just my stuff but other people's stuff. So they sent me this track and I immediately texted them back and I was like, "Yo, will you just send me these particular elements?" And it was like the bass line, the synth chords in the beginning. And for weeks, I couldn't get Wu-Tang's Cream out of my head. Like, I don't know what it was, but like when I would go to the gym, I would play it. It would be like randomly on a playlist. I'd turn on the radio. It'd be on the radio. I'd be like, what do I need to do with this song? So I'm a big believer in signs. Like when I hear something a lot, or when I can't get a melody out of my head, I immediately have to sit down and work on it. And that's kind of how it came about. Like I flipped the word cash from the original song to kitty. And then when you spell it out, it just says cream. I mean, uh, I think it's not only an homage to Wu-Tang, but it's really an homage to Prince.
Okay.
And I'm a huge Prince fan. Like I can't even begin to describe to you how this man's catalog like just changed my life as a kid. Like top two artists for me, Prince and then NERD. Like I feel like when I heard those two people, when I heard Prince and I heard this group, those are pivotal moments in my life that I always remember back to.
Okay.
Being and remembering that it changed me, like for like as a musician, hearing Prince, his first technical first album as a signed artist, and then hearing NERD's first album in high school changed my life. So I, you know, I'm always trying to figure out ways to pay homage to the legends. And I think Cream is a good combination of both of those things. I mean, it's a sexy song too. So obviously, I'm trying to pay homage to the ladies too. But yeah, it's a lot in that song. It's a lot of affirmations in that song. I think once you get past like the sexiness of the record, it's a lot of things that I've always wanted to say to women that I feel like I haven't heard in a record yet. And especially in the bridge, I always tell people to peep the bridge, and the bridge is full of affirmations. You're a fountain full of divine truth. Then I'm coming back and affirming that, saying, I'm just here to remind you, you're something delightful. I die for you. Like these are real things that you would, that I feel like anybody that's in love or really cares about their woman or their partner, like those are some strong words to say to somebody. And then after you affirm it, then maybe you get a little bit of the other part of the relationship, the sex and the love and all of that. But I think it's always important to affirm one another, whether it's man to woman or just mankind. Like it's important to affirm things to people and let them know that you're there and you're present with them, especially like in an intimate setting. You know what I'm saying? Like you don't want it to just be about the intimacy. You want there to be something more than the intimacy that keeps that person engaged. So that's why I wrote the song. The song has a lot of breaths and pauses in it to make you feel like you're in that intimate space with me. But it's really about the affirmations for me, before the sexiness of the song. So
Very well said. Very well said. I appreciate
Yeah,
you
man.
dropping that knowledge on us. We're kind of hopefully getting to the end of the winter days, and then hopefully we'll see a lot more of these sunny days moving forward as we get a little closer to spring. As we move into the hopefully the warmer months and warmer weeks to come, what's next for you? What's next for you as 2021 continues to move along?
Man, it's gonna be a lot of making music. I feel like I have a lot more to say. Um, and uh as it gets warmer, I mean, there's some records on Darling that I feel like, are set just for the right time, especially in Atlanta. By the time April comes, by the time Easter rolls around, it's gonna be hot again here. So I feel like barbecues are coming. I feel like records like Heaven with You are gonna be perfect for those settings. Rider is gonna be good for those warm Atlanta nights that we have, because Atlanta, the sun just goes down in Atlanta, but it stays hot. You know what I'm saying? So it's not like California where the sun goes down and then it gets cold.
Yeah.
Not happening here. So I feel like Rider is one of those songs that's good for like the sunset, when you stuck in traffic on, 85 going back south, as a lot of people do in Atlanta. That's a good song for that time. And I think there's some new music coming. I'm pretty what's great about where I am, I made a lot of music before I made Darling that just didn't make Darling. So I'm pushing that music over into the next project. So it's gonna be fun, man. I think there's a lot of records that I'm working on for other people too, other artists, that is gonna come out in 2021 too. So I think it's gonna be a good year. I prayed for this year. Like, I prayed for this year, all of the pandemic during 2020, that when 2021 came around, that we'd be able to really move around and do what I know I was called to do. So I can't wait to get out and perform things, and hopefully toward the end of the year be able to do some festivals, and whenever that opens back up. So 2021 is going to be more of me exploring and figuring out new ways to present music, and challenge the status quo.
Man, I deeply once again appreciate sitting down and chatting with you, getting to learn more about you. I'm
Yeah,
looking
man.
forward to continuing to watch your journey and see where you take your career, see where you take your artistry. You definitely will be supporting you in any way that we possibly can.
Yes,
Please
sir.
let our audience know how they can check you out via social media.
Yeah, man. So I'm Dixon on everything. Dixson. You can find me on Instagram, Twitter, even if you're still using Facebook, all of that. And I'm Dixon on all the streaming platforms too. So you can stream my music, both old and new. I'm grateful for all of it. So yeah, follow me all those places.
Man, much love. Thank you once again for your time. Be blessed and enjoy the rest of your day out here.
Yes, sir, man. Thank you so much.
Much love.